The American poet E. Cummings certainly knows how to greet a day. I thank you, God, for most this amazing day, for the leaping greenly spirits of trees and a blue true dream of sky, and for everything which is natural, which is infinite, which is yes.
Welcome to virtual worship at the Unitarian Church of Los Alamos. I'm Ann Marsh, Worship Associate. Our minister, the Reverend John Cullinan, is taking some time off for study and planning, and I'm delighted to introduce our guest speaker, Sue Watts. Sue has been a member of our Los Alamos Unitarian Universalist congregation for 10 years. Earlier in life, Sue lived for 20 years in Rome, Georgia, and Birmingham, Alabama, where she and her husband Wally raised their family and where she became involved in racial justice efforts through the United Methodist Church. Sue worked with an interracial group to provide a mixed-race day camp. She served on the board of an inner-city community center, and she helped to create the Uncommon Communion, a group of people of many skin colors who came together to listen to and grow from each other's experiences. When Sue and Wally moved to Las Vegas, Nevada, she became a certified diversity trainer for the National Girl Scouts of the United States. Today, Sue will share some of what she's learned on her journey. Welcome, Sue. As Unitarian Universalists, we come together not because we all believe the same things, but to learn from each other, to draw inspiration from many sources, and to work together to build communities of greater justice and compassion. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your journey, you are welcome here. If you're watching on Sunday morning, we invite you to join our Zoom coffee hour after the service at 11. For other opportunities to connect throughout the week, check our website, our Facebook pages, and our email announcements. Whether you're visiting us for the first time or have been part of this congregation for many years, we hope that this hour that we set apart from our everyday concerns will help us to see the holy in ourselves, in each other, and in the world around us. Let us begin with a moment of shared silence. From the events of our lives come the songs of our hearts. Some are heart songs of grief and sorrow, some of joy and hope. Whether spoken aloud written down, whispered into the wind, or held in silence, all are a precious part of the journey we share. So let us take a moment now as two small candles burn in our sanctuary to bring to our minds and hearts whatever joys and sorrows we carry with us this day. In the midst of national trauma and personal struggles, anxiety, anger, fear, grief are all too real. And yet, a 5-alarm sunset, the smile of a child, moonlight through the pines, a cup of tea with a friend, these can all remind us that love and beauty are as real as pain and loss. Sources of healing and wholeness abound, and there is a love that will not let us go.
Let us follow Jon Kabat-Zinn's invitation to allow our attention to drop gently into the breath as a leaf might flutter down onto the surface of a pond. In the stillness, soak up and savor the gift that is yourself. Soak up and savor the gift that is someone close to you. Soak up and savor the gift of someone who rubs you the wrong way. And finally, soak up and savor the gift of a community that supports and surrounds you. Let us be thankful for our lives and the chance we have to live them.
Once upon a time in a faraway land there lived a royal emperor who had a very kind heart. One day an exhausted seabird was blown off course by terrible winds and landed in the emperor's garden. The emperor was very moved by the poor bird's plight. He ordered it to be taken to the temple and given silver bowls of his best wine. This was something that had always cheered him up, so he thought it might help the bird. But the bird did not drink the wine. Maybe the bird needs food, not wine, he thought. So he ordered a bull to be killed for the royal banquet, so that the bird could dine on the finest delicacies. But the bird was not tempted by the wonderful food. The emperor then summoned the best magicians in the land to play beautiful music for the bird. But alas, the bird remained timid and confused. Luckily, a wise woman saw the sad bird and advised the emperor. You are assuming the bird will be comforted by the same things that you are. But if everyone follows their own mind as the standard, their actions will leave out everyone else. Find out what the bird needs, not what you need. Since the emperor had been raised by wise women, he knew to heed their advice. And so the emperor took the bird back to the coast, found morsels of fish and lots of water for it. The bird recovered and flew off to join the flock.
All right, so we hope you enjoyed our story today about the emperor and the bird. And there's the bird in the background. Yes, so today during the service, we're going to be talking about ways that you can help other people, all right? But it's also important to remember that it's not help for other people if it's not something they need. And so for our intention table today, we're going to draw a picture. If you have some paper and something to draw on, draw a picture of something that you're good at that maybe no one else is, or maybe that you're better at, something that you're really good at. But think of ways you could use that to help people. Maybe help provide things they need. But remember, it's not helpful if it's something they don't need. You know, you might like to do it. Like, I love baking. Okay, I love to bake things and give them to people, but I have some friends who can't eat wheat. So if I were to make them some muffins and give them to them and I used regular flour, that would not be a kind thing because they can't eat those. So we want to do something, we always want to find out from people. What is it they need before we try to help them? All right, so I hope you enjoy the rest of the service.
The first reading for today is attributed to Rabbi R.M. Shapiro. Each of us comes into the world with a gift no one else can offer, ourselves. And the second reading will be familiar to those of us who are Unitarian Universalists. The 7 principles. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We seek justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. We accept one another and encourage spiritual growth in our congregations. We get engaged in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We employ the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. We work toward the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And we respect the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Each of us is unique, coming into the world with a gift no one else can offer, ourselves. This quote by Rabbi Shapiro gave shape and form to a concept I've been playing with over the course of my lifetime. It puts my nebulous feelings into such clear, succinct words that I can articulate it easily in my mind and in my actions. It continues to be a core tenet of my belief system, one which I try to apply to myself as well as to those I meet. Whatever you call it, a life force, chi, prana, a spark of the divine, the fact of the matter is that every one of us has something special to offer this world. Experiences may help us to discover our gift early in our lives, but often it takes some time before we begin to realize what floats our boat or what makes things happen easily and naturally for us. If we can recognize and celebrate it, it can become a base from which we can operate. Discovering our gift frees us to look for that uniqueness in each person that we encounter. As Mary Oliver has said, love yourself, then forget yourself, and love the world. Loving the world enables us to begin the work that will lead to connections that can bridge our differences. We often don't have a clue on how to start. It can be, as Nancy Giles said on CBS Sunday Morning last week, a messy and awkward process. But, she adds, if we learn something, it is worth it to all of us. In the late 1970s and 80s, I lived in the newly desegregated South, where some people of both races were struggling to create a bridge between two very different backgrounds. As the Black Lives Matter movement began to gather force this year, I looked back at those times for the experiences that had created positive connections between Black and whites. I began to see some similarities among some of the most successful ones. I'm not claiming to be able to solve racism in our time, but I was able to identify a few threads in the tapestry of connection, threads that ease the dialogue between the different races and strengthen our connections. First, I'd like to give you a brief glimpse at a couple of the most fruitful happenings. In a small northwest Georgia town, I joined a group of church ladies struggling to find common ground after the merge of a Black and white United Methodist conferences. In our first few meetings, we were tentative and formal. We wore church clothes and we nibbled on cheese straws and tried to make sense of the racial divide. However, it was not until we decided that our community's youngsters needed to experience interactions with each other that we came together as a group to run a community day camp. There was something about that sweaty southern summer that pulled us together into a band of friends committed to building bridges both amongst ourselves and amongst our young folk. Later, after a move to Birmingham, Alabama, we helped form a group of folks from a Black inner city church and a large white suburban church. We called ourselves the Uncommon Communion, but at first there was very little communion, just a bunch of nervous folk hesitantly trying to bridge a gap 400 years in the making. There were no cheese straws this time. We wore jeans and ate barbecue, but it was still an artificial situation where our differences loomed larger than our commonalities. We didn't become a group until a local Black community center asked us to sponsor and produce a fundraising dinner. We established procedures, we made lists and timelines, we argued, and we laughed our way through all the preparations and the dinner itself. We came to respect what each person could contribute to the cause, and we never looked back. That group became the local version of an extended family for most of us. In looking at these two experiences and others, I can identify 4 actions that help create those points of connection. First, we got ourselves out of the way. We listened to and heard each other. We bonded by grappling with the logistics of mutual work projects, and we contributed to justice at the place where our unique gifts intersected with the needs of society. Let's look at those actions a bit more deeply. To begin with, we got ourselves out of the way. We faced our fear of saying and doing something wrong. In her July 4th podcast on being, Krista Tippett noted that if we make space in our lives together to learn and to grow, it means that we will fail sometimes. She said, we have to find ways to welcome the failure that turns into growth. There is no way to completely escape making some kind of faux pas, but with humility and maybe a dash of wry self-deprecation, the offender can make amends, the offendee can accept the apology, and the two can continue to work towards the real goal of connection. In addition, we cut defensiveness from our interactions. In White Fragility, Dr. Robin DiAngelo observes that well-meaning folk are often so busy trying to defend their credentials as liberal white folk that they shut down any chance for a dialogue about diversity, racism, or building bridges. We had to quit worrying about ourselves and accept the fact that we were all in the same situation. Finally, I think we managed to avoid what nature and philosopher Gary Ferguson calls a fatal human flaw. That when we reach out to connect with others, we usually fall into the trap of trying to get them to be more like us. The emperor in our story time needed a wise woman to point it out, but we can learn to listen to the needs and experiences of others with openness, curiosity, and understanding, which is a second helpful point. I found a simple, direct example of a person listening in the actions of the Flint, Michigan police chief, who quite frankly had the look of a white supremacist. But at one of the first protest marches, he and his men shed their helmets, their armor, their clubs. When he asked the protesters what they wanted, he clearly heard their chant of "Walk with us," and so he did. Which brings us again to the next point about listening. Again, I found Nancy Giles' comments helpful. My white friends are finally seeing racism for themselves on video, and they're starting to understand that they can never understand what it's like to be on the receiving end of this insanity. Black people have lived with this for 400 years, so it's white people's turn to deal with themselves. Time to stop whining, take a beat, and try listening. We need to hear what the other person is trying to say without worrying about our response. It is the most helpful thing to do if we can do it with understanding. In this context, F. Scott Peck observed, "You must be willing to stand under that person, that is, at least temporarily, to put them in authority over you. You can be curious about their story, their experiences, their griefs, their pain, their joys, the needs they have. In short, you can listen for their uniqueness, their humanity." This can lead to the third, and I have found the most effective way to facilitate real connections. It was through the creation of a common experience, preferably one that included physical work. Whether it was sitting under a tarp with 15 kids while a Georgia rain poured down, or sitting around after a successful fundraising dinner, sharing laughter and stories, it was the common experience of sharing an authentic struggle with a problem that smashed the barriers and brought us to parity. Right now, it's hard to recreate that mutual experience. For one thing, we live up here on a hill of ivory privilege. There are few blacks with whom we can interact, and I worry that we are using the experience of a few as emblematic of the entire race. I learned that lesson a long time ago when a friend thundered at me, "Stop it. You can't make me the spokesman for the entire black race. I have my own opinions to share, you know." Trust me, she was unique. With so few blacks with which we can interact, I wonder if we should extend our concern for justice to others in the surrounding area and other groups that need justice as well. Should we be focused on the homeless in Espanola, the Pueblos, the Navajo Nation? Have our interactions with the Tewa Women's Cooperative been fruitful? And how could we make it more fruitful? And then, how can we interact on a mutual project in the middle of a pandemic when respectful distancing and masks are the norm? Finally, as our work together continued in the past, we begin to see the shapes of the needs in the community, and we came to see where our special gift could be used to meet some of those demands. This is a place where the uniqueness concept comes to our rescue again. Some of us are better at protests, others at helping to create policies that root out hidden discrimination. Some of us work better with large groups, while others of us are more effective one-on-one. Still, others may find that the most needed thing is money, and that may be what we have to offer. No gift shared in the process of bringing justice should be disparaged or felt to be unworthy. We do what we can to meet a need defined by the community, generously sharing our gift ourselves to help bring justice for others. To look at the tapestry of connections woven so many years ago is to recognize the actions that produced the deepest connections in my experience. They seem to occur when we got ourselves out of the way, listened deeply and with understanding to each other, joined with others in physical work projects, and used our special gifts to affect the best outcome. It can be a daunting task to achieve communion across the racial divide. We have to look for the simplicity behind all the complexity. I'll let Jason Reynolds, the Library of Congress's National Ambassador for Young People's Literature, have the last word. Anti-racism is not the finish line. It is a muscle that you can develop, one that says, "I love you because you are you, and not because you are what I want you to be." See each human as human, period. It's the most human thing we can do.
Here in this religious community, we receive gifts that nurture body, mind, and spirit. Our offering is an opportunity to share some of what we have with the wider world. Even though we are unable to meet in person, we continue to take an online offering for our community partners. During the month of July, we invite you to contribute to self-help. Self-help provides emergency financial assistance and seed money grants in Los Alamos, Rio Arriba, Taos, and northern Santa Fe counties. Ordinarily, we devote our December offering to self-help. But with the health crises and job losses wrought by the COVID-19 pandemic, the needs are great right now. On your screen is the mailing address for self-help if you would like to send a check. You'll also see their website address where you can learn more about self-help and make an online donation. Thank you for your generosity. May what you give bring you joy.
And so, my friends, we part for another week. May you be free from all inner and outer harm. May you be happy and content. May you be as healthy as possible. And may you know the ease of well-being.